Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something truly fascinating. It's this incredible anthropological case study buried deep within ancient religious texts. Think of our time today as a journey, and we're taking it through the eyes of a halachic anthropologist, or maybe a comparative religion scholar. We're going to examine exactly how ancient communities navigated the really murky waters of trust, religious boundaries, and the hyper-meticulousness of breakaway factions. It is a profound look into human sociology that is, honestly, just as relevant today as it was a millennia ago. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. We'll start with the sectarian dilemma, test things out with the bird slaughter test, and then jump into the Passover Matzah debate. After that, we'll weigh skepticism against sociological insight, and finally tie it all together with written texts and embraced traditions. Let's get right to it. Section 1. The Sectarian Dilemma, the Halachic Anthropologist's View. To really grasp our first dilemma, we got to put on our sociologist hats. We're looking at this intense tension between a mainstream religious group, in this case the rabbinic Jewish community, and a strict breakaway sect. Now, I want you to consider this question for a moment. How exactly does a mainstream religion measure the trustworthiness of a splinter group? When a faction splinters off claiming to follow the exact same core texts but totally rejecting the mainstream authorities, how do you know if you can actually trust their religious observances? Like, can you eat their food? Can you rely on their legal testimony? The biggest hurdle here isn't just about what's written down in black and white. It's all about the unwritten rules. So, our breakaway sect for this case study: the Samaritans, or as they're referred to in the Talmud, the Kutim. And oh man, do they present a fascinating dilemma. See, the Samaritans were absolute literalists. They strictly adhered to the written Torah, the 5 books of Moses, but they entirely rejected the oral Torah. That means all the unwritten traditions and rabbinic interpretations that the mainstream Jewish community held as binding law, the Samaritans threw out. This strict literalism creates a massive legal and social dilemma, because if a rule is passed down by tradition but isn't explicitly spelled out in the written text, will the literalist sect actually follow it? And more importantly, can you trust them to do it right? That takes us to Section 2, the bird slaughter test, testing those unwritten traditions. So here is our inciting incident. To figure out this whole trust issue, the Talmud doesn't just sit around debating abstract philosophies. No, it goes straight to a highly technical, kind of messy trigger point, the slaughterhouse. The dilemma starts with a very specific textual gap. You see, the Torah explicitly commands that animals must be slaughtered for consumption, right? But it does not explicitly detail the exact rules and mechanics for slaughtering birds. Now remember, the Samaritans only follow what is explicitly written. So if the precise rules aren't written down anywhere, do literalists like the Samaritans actually follow them? So the crucial point is understanding just how incredibly complex these unwritten rules actually are. I mean, the Talmud lists 5 highly technical actions that instantly disqualify a slaughter. You've got interrupting the cut, pressing the knife down instead of slicing smoothly, concealing the knife beneath the windpipe, diverting the knife outside the designated neck area, and ripping the vital signs before cutting them. None of these 5 complex disqualifications are explicitly written in the Torah. Literally nowhere. So how can a Jew ever eat a bird prepared by a Samaritan? Well, the Talmud proposes this remarkably practical, boots-on-the-ground litmus test to verify adherence. Picture this. A Jew finds a Samaritan holding a string of slaughtered birds. The Jew obviously doesn't know if the unwritten rules were followed, so the Jew quietly cuts off the head of one of the birds and just hands it to the Samaritan to eat. If the Samaritan eats it, boom, the slaughter of the rest of the birds is deemed valid, and the Jew can eat them. Why? Because the Gemara, the rabbinic commentary, concludes that even though these rules aren't explicitly written, once a Samaritan community embraces a practice, they embrace all its unwritten complexities flawlessly. If he eats it, it proves he slaughtered it to the absolute highest standard. Let's move to Section 3, the Passover Matzah debate, from the slaughterhouse to the Seder. Now, let's totally shift the paradigm. We're moving from the messy, technical preparation of animals over to the highly scrutinized, super-sensitive ritual of the Passover table. The text presents a classic Tanaic debate, a dispute between early Mishnaic sages asking a critical question. Can a Jew fulfill their Passover obligation using matzah baked by a Samaritan? Now, if you know anything about Passover, you know the rules for avoiding leaven and baking valid matzah are notoriously intricate. This is literally the ultimate anthropological test for religious meticulousness. Are the Samaritans expert enough to be trusted with the single most sensitive ritual food of the entire year? Which brings us to Section 4, Skepticism versus Sociological Insight, the Tanaic Clash. This debate, it isn't just about recipes.
It's about evaluating human behavior and exploring the psychological dynamics between the rabbis themselves. And this brilliantly illustrates the clash of two entirely different worldviews. On one side, you have Rabbi Elazar's strict legal skepticism. He argues that you absolutely cannot use Samaritan matzah. Why? Because they lack expertise in the minute, unwritten details of prohibited leaven. They aren't part of the mainstream rabbinic academy, so they simply don't know the nuances. Makes sense, right? But on the other side, we have Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, and he offers this profound counterargument based on deep sociological observation. He doesn't look at their academic credentials. He looks at their cultural psychology. He says, with regard to any mitzvah that the Samaritans embraced, they are more exacting in its observance than are Jews. Wow, I want you to really let the weight of that statement sink in. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, a leader of the mainstream community, is openly admitting that when this breakaway sect decides to adopt a mitzvah, a religious commandment, their zeal, their hypervigilance, and their meticulousness actually surpass that of the mainstream community. It is this timeless behavioral observation about the absolute intensity of fundamentalist or breakaway factions.
And finally, Section 5, Written Texts and Embraced Traditions, Resolving the Matrix. So how do we reconcile this? Let's move to the matrix and see how this builds a framework for trust. The text gives us this brilliant logical breakdown of the debate. It outlines a matrix of trust, comparing a first Tana, an anonymous early sage, with Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. For the first Tana, trust is purely textual. If a mitzvah is explicitly written in the Torah, you can rely on the literalist Samaritans. If it's not written, even if they've culturally embraced it, nope, you can't rely on them. But Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel completely flips the script. For him, the text alone just isn't enough. If a rule is written but the community hasn't actually embraced it, you cannot trust them. Conversely, even if a rule is completely unwritten, like the bird slaughter we talked about earlier, if you observe that they have culturally embraced it, you can trust them absolutely. All because of that uncompromising exactness.
To summarize this final, incredible resolution, the ultimate test of trust isn't just what happens to be written down in a community's charter or holy book. It is about what that community has genuinely, culturally embraced and internalized. The Talmud takes these hyper-specific legalities of slaughtering birds and baking matzah and ties them back to this massive, macro-level theme of societal trust. The laws on the books, honestly, matter less than the living, breathing culture of the people actually practicing them. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought to chew on. We've been looking at this ancient dynamic, right? But honestly, human nature rarely changes. Where else in modern society do we see the meticulous zeal of the breakaway sect? Whether we're talking about modern religious movements, political factions, or even hyper-niche internet subcultures, when a group splinters off to pursue what they see as a purer path, how does their meticulousness compare to the mainstream? And how on earth do we build or measure trust across those divides today? Think about that. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating text with me.